Welcome to Miss Scarlet. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the heart of the tempest, the windows of the cozy apartment trembled, as if the wrathful storm wished to breach its barrier and claim sanctuary within. Each thunderous boom shook the air, blurring the boundaries between the chaotic outdoors and the sanctuary inside. As the elements raged, so did the apartment's lights, flickering hesitantly before surrendering to the enveloping shadow.
Terrific,
Armani grumbled, his voice a mere whisper against the wind's savage melody.
Pitch black. Just wonderful.
A dry response floated in from the darkness, carrying the faintest hint of vexation.
Enlighten me. Are we prepared for this with flashlights or candles?
At the sound, Armani's heart skipped a beat, its rhythm erratically pounding against his ribcage. He did have flashlights, tucked away in his bedroom closet, the same closet that harbored his most carefully guarded secret.
I think I have some emergency supplies in my room,
he said, trying to keep his voice casual.
Give me a minute to find them. I'll help,
Josh offered, already fumbling his way toward Armani's voice.
4 hands are better than 2, especially when we can't see a damn thing.
Panic surged through Armani's veins. No, that's okay. I can... The rest of his protest died as Josh's shoulder bumped against his. Dude, it's pitch black. Let's just find the flashlights before one of us breaks something valuable. Trapped by the logic and the darkness, Armani swallowed hard.
Fine. This way.
They inched through the apartment, navigating by memory and touch until they reached Armani's bedroom. The storm offered brief flashes of illumination through the window, enough to see the outline of the closet door.
Should be in there,
Armani said, his mouth suddenly dry.
In a box on the floor, I think.
Josh moved forward, sliding the closet door open.
Got your phone? We could use the screen light at least.
Armani fumbled for his device, tapping it to life. The faint blue glow barely penetrated the darkness, but it was enough for Josh to see the closet floor. He knelt down, pushing aside what felt like shoeboxes.
Man, you have a lot of shoes,
Josh commented, his hand continuing to explore the closet floor.
What's this box? Feels like plastic.
Lightning flashed, illuminating the room for a split second, long enough for Josh to see exactly what his hand was resting on. A clear plastic container filled with makeup palettes, brushes, and tubes of lipstick.
Found something,
Josh said, pulling the container out. Another flash of lightning revealed more. A row of dresses hanging on the far side of the closet, a shelf of wigs, and several pairs of strappy sandals and high heels arranged neatly below. Armani stood frozen, the phone slipping from his trembling fingers and clattering to the floor. The screen went dark, but it didn't matter. The damage was done.
I can explain,
he whispered, the words sticking in his throat. Josh continued rummaging, his hand finally closing around what felt like a flashlight.
Found it,
he said triumphantly, clicking it on. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the closet's contents in stark detail, the masculine clothes on one side and the decidedly feminine wardrobe on the other, dresses in various colors, with floral sundresses prominently displayed. The makeup case Josh had discovered sat open now, revealing high-end cosmetics neatly organized inside. Armani took a step back, his back pressing against the wall. He couldn't read Josh's expression in the shadows, couldn't tell if his oldest friend was disgusted, angry, or worse, pitying.
So,
Josh said finally, the flashlight beam lowering to the floor.
This explains why you never let me borrow clothes when I stay over.
The comment was so unexpected, so utterly absurd in the moment, that a nervous laugh bubbled out of Armani's throat.
That's what you have to say?
He asked incredulously. Josh shrugged, the motion barely visible in the darkness. What do you want me to say? That I'm shocked my best friend has better fashion sense than I do? Because that's not exactly news. Armani slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to his chest.
You're not freaked out? About what? That sometimes you dress differently?
Josh moved the flashlight beam away from the closet, finding a second flashlight in the box. He clicked it on and handed it to Armani.
I mean, I have questions. Obviously. But freaked out? No.
Another flash of lightning. Another rumble of thunder. The storm continued its assault outside, but inside, the atmosphere had shifted.
I've been doing this since college,
Armani admitted, his voice soft.
It started with Halloween costumes, but then it just felt right. Comfortable.
He swallowed hard.
When I'm dressed like that, I feel like I'm being my real self. I call her Scarlet.
Josh nodded slowly, processing.
Scarlet, he repeated. It suits you.
That crimson dress in there. I bet it looks amazing with your skin tone. Armani blinked rapidly, unsure if he was hearing correctly.
You're really okay with this? Look,
Josh said, settling on the edge of the bed.
We've been friends for what, 15 years? You've seen me through my worst breakups, my parents' divorce, and that horrific platinum blonde phase sophomore year.
He gestured with the flashlight toward the closet.
This doesn't change who you are to me. It just means there's more of you to know.
The tightness in Armani's chest began to loosen, relief washing over him in waves.
I've never shown anyone before, he confessed. I was afraid. Of rejection?
Josh finished for him.
Yeah, I get that. But come on, give me some credit. I'm the guy who still hangs out with you, despite your terrible taste in movies.
This time, Armani's laugh was genuine.
My taste in movies is excellent, thank you very much. Says the person who owns every Fast and Furious film on Blu-ray.
Josh turned his flashlight back toward the closet.
So, Scarlet, do you want to introduce me properly?
The question hung in the air, laden with meaning. Armani's heart raced, but this time with something closer to excitement than fear.
You mean, if you're comfortable,
Josh said.
We're stuck here in the dark anyway. Might as well make use of the time.
Armani stood slowly, his legs still a bit unsteady.
You really want to meet her?
I really do, Josh replied, his voice sincere.
And, hey, I've always wanted to learn how to do proper makeup. My eyeliner game is tragic.
A smile spread across Armani's face, one that contained both relief and joy.
Let me get some candles from the kitchen. We're going to need better lighting.
20 minutes later, the bedroom glowed with the warm light of a dozen candles arranged around the space. Armani sat cross-legged on the bed, the makeup case open beside him as he carefully applied foundation to his clean-shaven face.
So, how long does this usually take?
Josh asked, watching with fascination as Armani's features seemed to soften and transform with each product he applied.
Depends on the look,
Armani replied, his hand steady as he blended the foundation down his neck.
A full face can take 45 minutes to an hour. I've gotten pretty good at it over the years.
I can tell, That's some professional-level blending. Armani smiled, reaching for a palette of neutral eyeshadows.
It's relaxing, actually. Like painting, but the canvas is my face.
Josh leaned closer, studying the collection of products.
These are fancy brands. Must have cost a fortune. Worth every penny,
Armani said, sweeping a taupe shadow across his eyelid.
Cheap makeup looks cheap. I learned that the hard way.
The conversation flowed easily as Armani continued his transformation. He explained each step, from contouring his face to create softer angles to the precise application of false eyelashes. Josh watched, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just observing with genuine interest.
The wig is next,
Armani said, reaching for a long, blonde hairpiece from the closet.
I have several, but this one's my favorite. The color looks most natural with my skin tone.
He positioned the wig carefully, adjusting it until it sat perfectly. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The blonde locks framed his face, falling past his shoulders in soft waves.
Whoa,
Josh breathed.
That's incredible. You look completely different.
Armani, now much closer to becoming Scarlet, smiled.
That's kind of the point.
He stood, moving to the closet.
Now for the outfit.
He selected the crimson bodycon dress Josh had mentioned earlier, holding it up against himself.
This one? Definitely.
Josh nodded approvingly.
Goes with the name. I'll change in the bathroom,
Armani said, gathering the dress and a few other items.
Be right back.
When he returned 10 minutes later, the transformation was complete. Scarlet stood in the doorway, the crimson dress hugging curves created by strategic undergarments, blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, makeup emphasizing naturally long eyelashes and full lips. She wore black strappy sandals that added 3 inches to her height. Josh's eyes widened.
Holy shit!
He whispered. You're gorgeous! Scarlet smiled, a hint of uncertainty still lingering in her eyes. Thank you, she said, her voice pitched slightly higher than Armani's, but not artificially so. It's nice to finally meet you, Josh.
The pleasure is all mine,
Josh replied, standing to offer a theatrical bow that made Scarlet laugh. Seriously, though, you look amazing, like model-level amazing. Now you're just flattering me, Scarlet said, but her smile widened as she took a seat at the small vanity table.
I'm stating facts,
Josh insisted. He gestured to the makeup spread out on the bed.
So, about that eyeliner lesson?
Scarlet's eyebrows rose. You weren't kidding about that part?
Dead serious,
Josh confirmed.
I've always wanted to learn, just never had anyone to teach me.
Scarlet considered this for a moment, before nodding. Okay then, sit. She patted the spot beside her. We'll start with the basics. The rest of the night passed in a blur of makeup tutorials, laughter, and increasingly personal conversations. The storm continued to rage outside, but inside Armani's apartment, a different kind of transformation was taking place. With each passing hour, Scarlet grew more comfortable, more animated. She gestured with her hands when she spoke, laughed more freely, moved with a natural grace that seemed to emanate from within.
It's like watching someone bloom,
Josh commented at one point, as Scarlet demonstrated the proper technique for applying highlighter. You're so much more alive right now. Scarlet paused, the makeup brush hovering in midair. I feel more alive, she admitted quietly. Like I've been holding my breath for years, and finally, I can exhale. Josh reached over and squeezed her hand.
Then keep breathing. It suits you.
Around 3 a.m, the storm began to subside, though the power remained out. They'd migrated to the living room by then, where Scarlett had made a nest of blankets and pillows on the floor. She'd changed into comfortable loungewear, black leggings, and an oversized cream sweater that slipped off one shoulder, but kept the wig and makeup on.
Can I ask you something personal?
Josh said, his voice floating through the semi-darkness.
After tonight, you can ask me anything. Do you think you're transgender? Like, is Scarlet who you really are all the time inside?
Scarlet was quiet for a long moment, considering. I've thought about that a lot, she finally replied. And honestly, I don't know yet. Some days I feel completely comfortable as Armani. Other days, I wake up and everything feels wrong until I become Scarlet. She traced patterns on the blanket with her fingertip. I'm still figuring it out. Josh nodded, his expression thoughtful in the candlelight.
Well, whatever you decide, I'm here for it. Both versions of you are pretty awesome, as far as I'm concerned.
Even though Armani has terrible taste in movies? She teased.
Even then,
Josh confirmed with a grin.
Though Scarlet strikes me as someone with much more refined cinematic preferences.
Scarlet is a sucker for old Hollywood glamour, she admitted. Anything with Audrey Hepburn or Grace Kelly.
See? Already an improvement.
They both laughed, the sound warm and comfortable in the quiet apartment. Thank you, Scarlett said after a moment, for being so cool about all of this. I was so scared of anyone finding out.
What did you think would happen?
Josh asked gently.
Best case scenario?
Awkward tolerance. Worst case? Losing my best friend. She shrugged one shoulder, the sweater slipping further to reveal smooth skin. People can be cruel about things they don't understand.
Those people are assholes,
Josh said matter-of-factly. And for the record, this isn't tolerance. This is acceptance. There's a difference. Scarlett's eyes glistened in the candlelight. Yeah, she whispered. There is. They fell asleep as dawn approached, curled up in their blanket nest like children at a sleepover. When Scarlett woke hours later, sunlight was streaming through the windows and the power had been restored. Josh was still asleep, his face peaceful in repose. She watched him for a moment, this friend who had seen her most vulnerable self and responded with nothing but kindness. A wave of affection washed over her, alongside the realization that something fundamental had shifted during the night. The relief of being seen, truly seen, was overwhelming. Carefully, so as not to wake Josh, Scarlett rose and padded to the kitchen to start the coffee maker. As the rich aroma filled the apartment, she caught her reflection in the microwave door. Her makeup had smudged slightly during sleep, and the blonde wig was askew. But still, she looked like herself. Maybe more than she ever had before. The sound of movement from the living room announced Josh's awakening. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair sticking up at odd angles, eyes still heavy with sleep.
Morning,
he mumbled, making a beeline for the coffee pot.
Or is it afternoon? I have no idea what time it is.
Just past 11, Scarlett replied, sliding a mug toward him.
Storm knocked down power lines all over the city, according to the news. Some areas might not get power back until tomorrow.
Josh took a long sip of coffee, sighing contentedly.
We lucked out then.
He studied her over the rim of his mug.
You're still Scarlet, I see.
She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, suddenly self-conscious. Is that okay? I can change back if...
No,
Josh interrupted quickly. I like Scarlett. She makes better coffee than Armani. It's the same coffee, you dork! Tastes better, though, Josh insisted with a sleepy smile. Must be the company. Scarlett felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. So, she said, leaning against the counter. What now? Now? Josh refilled his mug. Now I desperately need a shower. And then I believe you promised to teach me how to do winged eyeliner. I did, didn't I? Scarlett laughed. Fair warning, it takes practice. Lots of practice. Good thing I'm a quick learner then. An hour later, freshly showered and changed, they sat at the vanity in Scarlett's bedroom. She'd touched up her own makeup and fixed her wig, and now wore a blue floral sundress that fluttered around her knees. Okay, the key to winged eyeliner is a steady hand and patience, she explained, demonstrating on her own eye with a fine-tipped liquid liner. Start from the inner corner and work your way out, keeping as close to the lash line as possible. Josh watched intently, then attempted to replicate the motion on his own eye. The result was a wobbly line that veered dramatically upward at the outer edge. How's that? He asked, turning to face Scarlett. She pressed her lips together to suppress a laugh. It's creative. Maybe a bit more horizontal for the wing? They spent the next half hour in fits of laughter as Josh's attempts grew increasingly dramatic. By the time they gave up, he had one eye that looked passable and one that Scarlett described as very editorial. I think I'll stick to admiring your skills rather than trying to copy them, Josh concluded, wiping off the makeup with a removal cloth. Some talents are better left to the professionals. You weren't that bad for a first attempt, Scarlett assured him, though her twitching lips betrayed her amusement. The important thing is that you tried. Josh rolled his eyes. Now you sound like my third-grade art teacher. Mrs. Higgins was right. Effort counts. Scarlett teased. She began organizing her makeup back into its case, each item returning to its designated spot. Can I ask you something else? Josh said, watching her methodical movements. Of course. What happens after today? Does Scarlett go back into hiding? The question brought Scarlett's hands to a standstill. She stared at the lipstick tube she was holding, turning it over in her fingers. I don't know, she admitted softly. Until last night, no one knew about her. I've only ever been Scarlett in private. And now? And now? She set the lipstick down carefully. Now someone else knows, and nothing terrible happened. Actually, quite the opposite. She looked up at Josh, vulnerability plain on her face. It feels like something has changed, like a door has opened that I can't close again, and I'm not sure I want to. Josh nodded, understanding. So, what does that mean for you? I think it means I need to figure out who I really am, Scarlett said slowly. Not just when I'm alone, but all the time. Because being Scarlett feels right in a way that being Armani sometimes doesn't. And I can't keep ignoring that. That sounds like a good plan, Josh said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. And for what it's worth, I think Scarlett is pretty fantastic. She squeezed back, gratitude shining in her eyes. Thank you for everything. The rest of the day passed in a comfortable rhythm of shared meals, conversations, and occasional power outages as the electric company continued their repairs. By early evening, They had migrated to the balcony with glasses of wine, watching as the city slowly re-illuminated around them. "I've been thinking," Scarlett said, swirling the burgundy liquid in her glass. "I'd like to go out sometime. As myself. As Scarlett." Josh looked over at her, eyebrows raised. "Yeah? Where would you want to go?" "Nothing too bold at first. Maybe dinner at that little Italian place around the corner, the one with the private booths and dim lighting." She took a sip of wine. "I just want to know what it feels like to exist in the world like this. To order a meal, to have a conversation with a waiter, to just be." "Sounds perfect," Josh said. "When do we go?" Scarlett blinked. "We? You didn't think I'd let you go alone your first time out, did you?" Josh looked mildly offended at the idea. "What kind of friend would I be?" A smile bloomed across Scarlett's face, brightening her entire countenance. "You'd really come with me?"
"Try and stop me,"
Josh replied with a grin.
"Besides, I've heard their tiramisu is legendary."
"It is," Scarlett confirmed. "I've been dreaming about it for months."
"Then it's settled."
Josh raised his glass in a toast.
"To your first dinner out as Scarlett. May it be the first of many."
They clinked glasses, the crystal ringing clear in the evening air. As Scarlett looked out over the city lights, a sense of possibility unfurled within her. 24 hours ago, she had been terrified of anyone discovering her secret. Now, she was planning her first public outing with her best friend by her side. All because of a power outage during a storm. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I used to hate thunderstorms. Now I'm thinking they're not so bad after all."
"Every cloud has a silver lining,"
Josh replied, nudging her shoulder with his.
"Or in your case, a crimson one."
Scarlett laughed, the sound light and free. "That was terrible."
"But accurate," Josh insisted. "Some of the best things come from unexpected places."
He wasn't wrong. The storm had forced a revelation that might have taken years otherwise. And while Scarlett didn't know exactly what the future held, she knew one thing for certain. She wouldn't be facing it alone. 3 days later, Scarlett stood in front of her full-length mirror, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her emerald green dress. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, her makeup subtle but flawless. Gold earrings caught the light when she turned her head, matching the delicate bracelet on her wrist.
"You look beautiful,"
Josh said from the doorway, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white button-down.
"Ready for your debut?"
Scarlett took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. "As ready as I'll ever be." The Italian restaurant was just as she remembered, intimate and warmly lit, with red checkered tablecloths and candles in wax-covered bottles. The host greeted them with a professional smile, showing no indication that he saw anything unusual about the pair.
"Reservation for Josh Wilson, party of 2,
Josh said smoothly.
"Right this way, please."
They were led to a corner booth, partially concealed by a decorative wine rack. Scarlett slid into the seat, her heart racing with a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration.
"You okay?"
Josh asked once they were alone, menus open before them. "I'm good," Scarlett replied, and was surprised to find she meant it. "Better than good, actually. This feels..."
"Right?"
Josh supplied. She nodded, a smile tugging at her glossed lips. "Right." The waiter appeared, introducing himself and reciting the evening's specials. He addressed them both equally, his gaze moving naturally between them as he took their drink orders. When he departed, Scarlet released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding.
See? Nothing to worry about,
Josh said, reaching across the table to pat her hand.
You're just a woman having dinner with a friend.
The simple truth of the statement hit Scarlet with unexpected force. That's exactly what she was, a woman having dinner. The realization settled over her like a warm blanket, comfortable and comforting. I am, aren't I? She murmured, more to herself than to Josh. The evening unfolded beautifully after that. The food was delicious, the wine perfectly paired, and the tiramisu every bit as legendary as reputed. But the true magic lay in the ordinary moments, being called ma'am by the waiter, receiving a compliment on her earrings from a passing woman, the simple pleasure of existing in public as her authentic self. By the time they left the restaurant, Scarlet was glowing with happiness. They walked slowly back to the apartment, the night air cool against their skin. Thank you, she said, linking her arm through Josh's. For making this possible.
You did all the hard work,
Josh replied.
I just tagged along for the tiramisu.
Still, Scarlet insisted.
I couldn't have done this without you. Maybe not today,
Josh conceded.
But you would have gotten here eventually. You're braver than you give yourself credit for.
Scarlet considered this. Maybe, but I'm glad it happened now, with you. When they reached the apartment, Scarlet paused in the entryway, looking around at the familiar space. It felt different somehow, not physically, but in the energy it contained. This was no longer a place divided between Armani's public persona and Scarlet's hidden existence. It was simply home, to the whole of who she was.
What are you thinking?
Josh asked, noting her contemplative expression. I'm thinking that storms can change landscapes, Scarlet replied. And sometimes that's exactly what's needed. Outside, the night was clear and calm, stars visible despite the city lights. But within Scarlet, a beautiful storm had passed through, washing away fear and uncertainty, leaving clarity in its wake. She wasn't the same person who had panicked in the darkness just 3 days ago. She was herself, finally and completely. And that was the most powerful transformation of all.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!